At 84 years old, I thought the pain in my legs would be my new way of living. That getting up every morning with that sharp stiffness was simply part of growing old. That there were no more remedies left to try. I had tried everything. Recommended ointments, pills of every color, massages at clinics, strange herbal infusions a neighbor brought me. Nothing seemed to work. The pain was still there, more stubborn than ever, more present than anything. It was frustrating. I couldn't walk more than 10 minutes without feeling as if needles were being driven into my calves. I slept badly. It was hard to stand in the kitchen. Even something as simple as making the bed became a challenge. And little by little, I started to give in. I thought that was how the rest of my days would be. But then, something changed. And it was something so simple, so unexpected, that I still find it hard to believe. One day, someone very close to me told me about an oil. Yes, a natural oil. Not from a pharmacy, not by medical prescription. An oil that, according to her, had helped her mother with pains very similar to mine. I admit, I didn't believe it. I thought it was another one of those well-intentioned recommendations that lead nowhere. But for some reason, I tried it. And that changed everything. In this video, I want to tell you with complete honesty what I lived through, what worked for me and what didn't. I'm going to tell you about the mistakes I made, the products that did nothing for me, and about that oil that, applied the right way, gave me the relief I had been seeking for years. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here because, if you're suffering from something similar, I want you to have one more option, an option that might actually work for you. And before we start, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments how old you are and where you're watching me from. It moves me to know how many older people are looking to take care of themselves, get informed, and live better, even at this stage of life. Let's begin. How my pain started. It all began with little twinges, the kind that show up at night when you're lying down and your body should be resting. I felt an uncomfortable tingling in my calves. I thought it was poor circulation, or maybe the old mattress. I didn't think much of it. Over time, those twinges grew more intense. They were no longer occasional. They woke me up in the middle of the night. I would get up, walk a bit down the hallway, try to shake out my legs, then lie back down hoping it would pass. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But what came next was worse. The stiffness started. It wasn't just at night anymore. When I got up in the mornings, it felt as if my legs were two pieces of wood. I shuffled my feet, with a strange burning in my knees. Climbing stairs became a slow task. Getting off the bus was a challenge. I tired faster, and I didn't understand why. I remember one morning in the kitchen very well. I was making my breakfast. I had been standing barely 10 minutes when my legs began to tremble. A sharp pain shot from my thighs down to my ankles. I had to sit down all of a sudden. I hadn't exerted myself. I hadn't lifted anything heavy. I was just there, standing, like any day. But it was no longer any day. Something in my body had changed, and it hadn't told me. From then on, every everyday activity turned into a test. Going to the market, making the bed, bathing. Everything felt longer, heavier. The pain followed me everywhere. It wasn't constant, but it showed up when I least expected it. And when it settled in, there was no ignoring it. I tried to explain it to my family, but you know how it is. It's normal at your age, they said. It must be the weather. You need more rest. But rest wasn't what I lacked. It was mobility. It was relief. It was understanding what was happening to my body and why it was failing me. What hurt the most wasn't the burning in my legs. It was the fear. The fear that this was the beginning of the end, of losing my independence, of depending on others to move, to walk, to live. I wondered if I was entering that stage I'd seen in so many acquaintances, the cane, the wheelchair, the eternal rest in front of the television. I didn't want that for me, but the pain gave me no truce. Every night I went to bed hoping that the next day something would have changed, that by some magic that discomfort would have gone away. But it didn't. On the contrary, each day it seemed a little more present, more settled, more in control of my steps. That's how it all began, with twinges, with stiffness, with 10 minutes standing that became impossible. And although I didn't know it then, the path to relief was closer than I imagined. What I tried and what didn't work. When the pain in my legs became part of my days, I did what anyone would do. I went to the doctor. The first one prescribed an anti-inflammatory, pills every 12 hours for 1 week. At first I felt slight relief, but it was like throwing a blanket over an open wound. As soon as the effect wore off, the pain came back. The same, or worse. Then came the painkillers, one stronger, then another with a complicated name. Each new medication came with a promise and a side effect. Nausea, dizziness, dry mouth, loss of appetite. I even ended up in the emergency room once because of an allergic reaction, and all to end up the same. I remember a doctor told me that chronic pain is managed, not cured. That sentence haunted me for months. I resigned myself. But even so, I kept trying. They recommended alternating cold and heat, putting a hot pack on my legs for 15 minutes, then switching to cold compresses. I did it religiously for weeks. At first it seemed to work. I felt a certain calm, as if the muscles were breathing, but it was enough to move a little more than usual for the pain to return, as if it had never left. I also tried creams, some natural, others with ingredients I can't even pronounce. They sold them to me as miraculous. Elite athletes use this, they told me. I let myself be convinced. I applied a generous layer before going to bed, hoping to wake up renewed. But the only result was a stained sheet and the same pain as always. In my search for solutions, I even paid for physical therapy sessions. At first they were gentle, with guided stretches, then more intense. Some left me sore for days. Others just made me feel I was paying to move the same way I already did at home. I'm not saying they're useless, but in my case, they didn't solve anything. They only relieved for a few hours, and afterward, the same ordeal. A neighbor suggested therapeutic massages. I went to a lady with a good reputation in the neighborhood. Warm hands, soft music in the background. Yes, it was pleasant. But rather than relieve, it was a distraction. When I left, my legs were the same, and my wallet lighter. There came a time when I lost count of everything I had tried. Pharmacy remedies, home recommendations, infusions. I even took garlic and turmeric capsules because someone told me they were good for circulation. Nothing. Everything stayed the same. And the worst part wasn't the expense. Although yes, I spent more than I want to admit. The worst part was hope. That feeling that this time it will work, only to see again and again that it doesn't. That at the end of the week, you still have the same pain, the same frustration, the same chair waiting for you to sit because your legs can't take it anymore. I came to think that pain was part of my life, like a shadow that would never leave, that it was the price of the years lived, that there was nothing more to be done. But just when I was resigning myself, something different appeared, something no one had mentioned to me before, and luckily, this time, it was worth listening to. A conversation that changed everything. That afternoon I went out to the porch just to get some air. I had spent several days with a pain that wouldn't even let me think. The simple act of putting on my shoes felt like torture. I sat in my usual chair, that wicker one with the worn cushion, and tried to ignore the burning in my calves. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and listened to the silence, until I heard a voice. "How are you today, Mr. Raymond?" said Mrs. Clara from the other side of the gate. Mrs. Clara is one of those neighbors who always have something to say, but they say it kindly. She is 78 years old, but walks more nimbly than many in their 50s. She's always busy with something, watering plants, tending her garden, carrying bags from the market. A woman who seems to have a secret formula for staying strong. I told her the usual, that the pain continued, that the medications weren't helping, that I didn't know what else to do. She listened without interrupting. She only nodded with an expression somewhere between patience and tenderness. When I finished, she paused and said, "Have you tried arnica oil?" I went quiet for a moment, The word sounded familiar, but I didn't really know what it was.
"My mother had the same pains you do," she went on. "She applied it to her legs every night before bed. She made it herself, with fresh leaves and olive oil. She said it calmed her more than any pill. And I swear she slept like a baby."
I didn't know what to say. Inside I thought, really? An oil? After everything I'd tried, was I going to trust something so simple?
"And does it really work?" I asked, not hiding my skepticism. "I don't promise miracles," she said, "but if your body no longer responds to the usual stuff, maybe it's time to try what worked before. Before so many chemicals, before so many pills." That sentence kept echoing in my head. She was right. I had filled my body with medications, treatments, modern formulas. What if what I needed was something older, more natural? Closer. Mrs. Clara disappeared for a moment and came back with a small glass bottle. "I have a bit here that I made a few weeks ago. Smell it." I opened the lid, and a herbal aroma, strong but pleasant, filled me. It wasn't like industrial creams that smell of artificial menthol. This scent was different, warmer, more human. "Apply it with gentle massages. Don't rub hard, just let the skin absorb it." I went home with that little bottle in my pocket and 1,000 doubts in my head. What if it was a waste of time? What if I ended up the same as with everything else? But when I got home, I looked at the tiny bottle. It was small, simple, with no label. I sat down, pulled up my pants, and applied a few drops to my legs, just as she had told me. I massaged with slow, circular movements. My skin absorbed it quickly. The smell was comforting. That night I slept a little better. The pain didn't disappear all at once, of course not, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a kind of relief. I don't know if it was the oil or the faith that something different was happening, but the next day I used it again, and then the day after. And like that, without realizing it, something began to change. Never underestimate a conversation at just the right moment. Sometimes the solution doesn't come from a doctor. It comes from someone who simply listens to you and reminds you of what we had already forgotten. What this oil is and why it helps. The oil Mrs. Clara recommended, and that I ended up using for weeks, was arnica oil with a touch of eucalyptus and camphor. I had never heard of that combination before, but since then, it's never been missing from my nightstand. Arnica is a plant with yellow flowers that grows in mountainous regions. It has been used for centuries to ease bumps, bruises, and muscle pain. In fact, in some old villages, it was the first go-to remedy when someone fell or twisted an ankle. It was known as the plant that soothes, or the shepherd's remedy. In oil form, arnica becomes a powerful balm. It's applied directly to the skin, and you don't need much. Just a few drops are enough. What it does is activate circulation in the painful area, allowing blood to flow better, bringing oxygen and removing waste that tends to build up in tissues when there's inflammation. It's as if it helped the body do what it should already be doing, but which, with age, becomes slower. In addition, arnica has a natural anti-inflammatory effect. Not as aggressive as a pill, but steady. Little by little, with daily use, it reduces the internal swelling you don't always see, but definitely feel. The burning in the legs, that heaviness, the uncomfortable heat. It all begins to soften. To that base oil, Mrs. Clara added a few drops of eucalyptus essential oil and a bit of camphor. Eucalyptus has a refreshing aroma that clears and relaxes, but it's not only the smell that helps, it also acts as a gentle muscle relaxant. It helps calm superficial nerves and gives a sense of coolness that eases the burning. Camphor, for its part, is an old familiar. Our grandparents already used it. It has that warm, cool effect you notice as soon as you apply it, and it penetrates the deeper layers of the muscle. It isn't just any ingredient. When used in the right dose, it stimulates the area, improves movement, and reduces cramps. But it should always be used carefully. A small amount is enough, especially for older people. When these three ingredients are combined, the result is an oil that works in layers. It soothes the skin, relaxes the muscle,
reduces internal inflammation, and reactivates circulation. And best of all, it doesn't attack the body, doesn't upset the stomach, doesn't disrupt sleep. Over time, I decided to research more, and I discovered that there are even modern studies supporting what our grandmothers already knew. At a center of alternative medicine in Germany, for example, they ran a trial with older people who suffered from chronic pain in their legs and knees. They used arnica in oil for 4 weeks. More than 70% reported a real decrease in pain, with no side effects. And we're not talking about young athletes, but people like us, with years lived and bodies that no longer respond the same. Another study in Brazil, with people between 60 and 80 years old, found that a blend of arnica with eucalyptus reduced the need to use pain pills in nearly half the cases. Most interesting was that patients said they felt lighter and less tense. Words I understand perfectly because that's exactly how I felt. Sometimes we think modern is better, that what comes in an expensive container has more power. But nature has been giving us answers for centuries. It's just that, amid the noise, we've forgotten them. This oil is not miraculous. It doesn't act in a second. But if you use it consistently, respectfully, and with faith, you can notice a real change. A change that begins in the legs, but extends to your mood, your rest, and your desire to move again. How I used it, and what I felt from the first day. The first time I used the oil, I didn't expect much. I was tired of so many promises. But that night, after the conversation with Mrs. Clara, I thought, what more can I lose? I poured a few drops into the palm of my hand, rubbed it between my fingers, and applied it gently to my legs. I followed her instructions to the letter. Circular movements, without pressing, from the ankles up to the knees, breathing slowly. At first I noticed a warm sensation. It wasn't a burning heat, nor the itching of some creams. It was more of a warmth that seemed to awaken something in the skin. The scent helped too. It wasn't overpowering, but it was fresh. The eucalyptus cleared my head, and the camphor left a slight coolness that drifted down the skin like a caress. I stayed like that, sitting on the edge of the bed, massaging slowly, as if I were talking to myself through my hands. That night I slept differently. It wasn't that the pain disappeared completely, but for the first time in weeks, it didn't wake me up in the middle of the night. I slept more deeply. The next day, I got up without that heaviness that had become habitual. It was a small change, subtle, but I felt it. From then on, I began to use the oil every night, without fail. I turned it into a little ritual. I closed the door, sat calmly, and spent a few minutes applying it. It was as if my body expected it, as if it knew that moment was just for it. By the second week, I began to notice something else. I could stand a little longer. Not much, but enough to make breakfast without having to sit down halfway through. Climbing the stairs was no longer torture. I even went out and walked 3 blocks without having to stop every 5 minutes. By the third week, the nighttime cramps had disappeared. That internal tension, that burning that seeped between muscles and bones, had calmed down. It wasn't magic. It was consistency. The oil seemed to have awakened something in me that I had already forgotten. The ability to heal gently. I also began to realize it wasn't just the oil. It was the gesture. The act of touching myself with respect, of giving myself time, of reconnecting with my body without anger or frustration. I started to see my legs not as a burden, but as a part of me that was asking for attention, that needed care, and I was finally giving it. Not every day was the same. There were days when the pain came back, especially if I pushed myself more than I should. But even then, the oil helped me relax, to keep the pain from growing, to keep it in its place, without letting it take control of my day. After a month, I wasn't thinking about the pain as much. I moved more freely. I felt less dependent on the chair, the cane, the forced rest. And the funniest thing is that I didn't even notice it all at once. It happened little by little, like dawn gaining light without you realizing it. Today I still use that oil, not because I'm tied to it, but because it does me good. because it reminds me that not everything good has to come in pricey boxes or with complicated names. Sometimes the simplest is the most effective and the most human. Which oil to choose and how to make it at home. After experiencing its effects and seeing how my body responded, I decided to go a step further. I asked myself, what if I could make it myself? What if you too could have access to this relief without depending on expensive brands or hard-to-find bottles? The good news is, yes, you can. This kind of oil isn't exclusive to laboratories or pricey herbal shops. With simple, natural, accessible ingredients, anyone can make it at home. And if you prefer to buy it ready-made, I'll also tell you what to look for to choose a good quality one. The first thing you should know is that these oils are prepared from two essential things: a base oil, also called a carrier oil, and essential oils, which provide the healing properties. Let's start with the carrier oils. This will be the vehicle that carries the benefits to your skin and makes the massage easier. The most recommended are olive oil, gentle, nourishing, easy to find, ideal for dry skin; sweet almond oil, very light, absorbs quickly, perfect if you don't like feeling sticky; coconut oil, with a pleasant aroma, it also has its own anti-inflammatory properties. You can use whichever you have on hand. The important thing is that it's natural, without added perfumes or chemical blends. Now, the essential oils. Here's the key. They are highly concentrated drops, extracted from plants with proven effects for muscle aches, inflammation, and circulation. The most effective for the legs are arnica, a natural anti-inflammatory, eases pain and bruising; eucalyptus, refreshing, stimulates circulation and relaxes muscles; mint, produces a calming sensation of immediate coolness; rosemary, stimulates blood flow and helps with stiffness; lavender, in addition to relaxing muscles, helps you sleep better; ginger, warms the area, ideal if your legs feel cold or numb. With these ingredients, you can create your personalized blend. The basic formula is this. For each heaping tablespoon, about 15 milliliters of carrier oil, add between 5 to 10 drops of the essential oils you choose. No more. They are very potent. You can mix, for example, 5 drops of arnica and 5 of mint, or 3 of eucalyptus, 3 of rosemary, and 4 of lavender. That will depend on your preferences and needs. Store the blend in a dark glass bottle if possible. That protects the oils from light and better preserves their properties. Shake gently before each use. But there's something very important. Do a patch test before using it widely. Apply a little on the inside of your arm and wait a few hours. If there's no itching, redness, or burning, you can use it with confidence. Also remember, never apply it to open wounds or irritated skin. And if you don't feel comfortable making it, you can look for it in natural stores or herb shops. Do read the labels carefully. Make sure the ingredients are pure, that there are no artificial perfumes, and that they clearly indicate they are suitable for topical use. Sometimes, the most powerful thing isn't a secret recipe, but the correct combination of natural elements that, used consistently and respectfully, make a big difference. Making this oil became part of my routine. It makes me feel I'm in control, that I can take care of myself with my own hands. And believe me, that is priceless. Common mistakes that make natural remedies not work. After seeing how much this oil helped me, I started sharing it with some friends, neighbors, and even family members. I explained how I made it, when I applied it, how much I used. Some were encouraged to try it, but not all saw results. Over time, I realized why. It wasn't that the oil didn't work. It's that, like everything in life, there are right ways to use it, and mistakes that can ruin its effect. One of the most common mistakes is applying the oil roughly. Many people rub as if they were scrubbing out a stain. They do it forcefully, quickly, impatiently. But this kind of remedy doesn't work that way. The older body doesn't respond well to haste. What it needs is gentleness, circular movement, slow, with warm hands. You don't have to push the pain to make it leave. You have to surround it, calm it, respect it. Another mistake is using the oil just once and expecting a miracle. I've been told many times, I tried it, but it did nothing for me. And when I ask how many times they applied it, the answer is usually, only once, 2 weeks ago. That's not how it works. The body needs time, especially when we've spent years accumulating tension, inflammation, and stiffness. Expecting everything to disappear with a single application is like trying to revive a dried plant with a single drop of water. Consistency is the real medicine. Applying it every day, even when there's less pain, is what makes the difference. It's daily work, like watering a plant or tending a garden. If you stop doing it, the pain regains ground. There are also those who think the oil alone will solve everything, but you can't neglect the rest of the body. If you keep sitting for many hours, if you don't move your legs at least a little every day, if you eat poorly or sleep little, then you're not helping the oil do its job. I learned that you have to accompany these remedies with simple habits: walking a bit every morning, stretching your legs upon waking, drinking enough water, avoiding excess salt and sugar. Small gestures that, alongside the oil, create a better environment for healing. And perhaps the biggest mistake of all is having unrealistic expectations. Thinking that after years of pain, in 2 days everything will disappear. That only leads to frustration. There are pains that take time to leave, and others that perhaps never go away entirely, but can become more bearable. The goal isn't always to eliminate the pain completely. Sometimes the real progress is regaining quality of life, sleeping without jolts, walking without stopping every 2 minutes, climbing a flight of stairs without fear. That, for many of us, is already a miracle. Natural remedies aren't fast, but they are kind. They don't hurt your stomach. They don't fog your head. They don't leave you groggy. And most importantly, they give you back control over your body. But you have to give them time, and treat them with the same respect you expect them to show you. So if you decide to try a natural oil, do it right, with care, with patience, with discipline. Because when you do things that way, results come. Slowly, yes, but steadily. And often, they last. 3 other oils that also help and that you can alternate. After several weeks of using arnica oil with eucalyptus and camphor, my body began to feel different, looser, more alive. But I also discovered that, just like with food or music, there isn't only one remedy for every day. Sometimes the body needs variety, a change of approach, attention to other aches that appear. That's how I started alternating oils depending on the moment, the kind of discomfort, or even my mood. And that opened a new path to relief, deeper and more complete. Today, I want to tell you about 3 essential oils that, if you use them intentionally, can be great allies. You can make them yourself at home, blend them with your favorite carrier oil, or buy them ready-made. The important thing is knowing when to use them, how to apply them, and what benefits to expect. 1. Ginger oil for deep inflammation. Ginger isn't just for tea or colds. Its essential oil has a very special property. It acts as a deep anti-inflammatory. It penetrates beyond the surface and eases pains that come from stiff muscles, swollen joints, or areas where there's already years of wear. This oil is ideal when you feel a more internal, warmer pain, as if the area were tight from the inside. It happened to me especially in the knees and hips. That discomfort you don't see, but that you feel like a stone when you walk. Ginger has a gentle warmth. It doesn't burn, it doesn't sting, but it activates the blood, improves mobility, and allows tissues to deflate little by little. It's perfect for morning use, before starting the day, when the body is still stiff. You can mix 5 drops of ginger with a tablespoon of coconut or olive oil and apply it to the painful areas with a slow massage. You'll see that, after a few days, movements become easier. 2. Lavender oil, to relax the muscles and sleep better. There are nights when the pain isn't stabbing or unbearable, but it won't let you sleep. It's as if the body were tense all the time. The muscles won't let go. The legs can't find rest. That's where lavender oil comes in. It is perhaps the gentlest of all, but also one of the most powerful. Its main virtue is relaxing the nervous system. When you apply it, it not only loosens the muscle, It tells your brain it's time to let go. I use it at night, right before bed. I apply a few drops to my legs, my shoulders, and even the nape of my neck. Then I breathe deeply, and almost without noticing, the body powers down little by little. It's a feeling of peace I hadn't felt in years. It's also very good for preventing nighttime cramps, those that strike all of a sudden in the middle of the night and force you to jump out of bed. Lavender helps prevent them, relaxing the muscle fibers from within. And one more detail, its gentle aroma lifts the mood. If you've had a tough day, if you feel overwhelmed or sad, lavender can accompany you like an invisible caress. 3. Rosemary oil, to activate circulation. Rosemary is a plant that was always present in my mother's kitchen, but over the years I discovered that its oil has an incredible effect on the body. It reactivates circulation like few others. When you use it, you feel a kind of energy waking up. It isn't a cool sensation like mint, nor warmth like ginger. It's as if the legs began to move better on the inside. I use it especially on cold days, or when I've spent a long time sitting. It's perfect to stimulate the blood, avoid swelling, and prevent that heavy feeling that sometimes builds from the ankles up to the knees. There are even studies showing rosemary oil can improve venous return, that is, helping the blood that goes down to the legs return more easily to the heart. That prevents varicose veins, edema, and chronic fatigue. You can use it on its own or mix it with lavender for a gentle but effective combination. How to alternate them? Each oil has its moment. Here's a simple guide that works for me. Ginger. In the morning, for stiffness, deep aches, or after physical effort. Lavender. At night, to relax and sleep better. Rosemary. During the day when your legs feel swollen, cold, or heavy. You can rotate them every 2 or 3 days, depending on how you feel. Listen to your body. It will tell you which one it needs. And remember, you don't need many oils at once. With 1 or 2 well chosen and applied consistently, results come. Tips to keep the pain from coming back. Once the pain starts to leave, the last thing you want is for it to return. Because when you live with pain for years, you learn to value even the smallest relief. That's why, in my case, once I felt better thanks to the oil, I decided not to let my guard down. I understood I had to protect that well-being with small daily acts. Today I want to tell you the changes I made. Not drastic, not impossible, but powerful. And if you also incorporate them into your life, I'm sure you'll not only keep the pain from coming back, you'll feel stronger, more agile, and more in control of your body. Walk every day, even if it's a little. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 15, or 20 minutes. What matters is that your legs move. The older body needs circulation, and circulation needs movement. I used to stay seated for a long time out of fear of pain, and that only made everything worse. Now I walk, even if I feel lazy, even if the day is cloudy, even if I have nowhere to go. Sometimes I just walk laps in the house. The important thing is to tell the body, we're still here, and we're going to move. Gentle stretches upon waking. When you open your eyes in the morning, your body has been still for many hours. The worst thing you can do is jump up. The best thing is to give yourself 2 minutes to stretch your legs, feet, toes, and back. I stay lying down, breathe deeply, and stretch one leg, then the other. I rotate my ankles. I move my arms. It's like waking the whole body up, part by part. That simple gesture reduces muscle pulls and improves mobility all day. Don't sit for many hours in a row. This was one of the hardest habits to change. When you're home all day, the temptation to stay in the armchair is strong, but I learned that keeping still is the enemy of relief. Now every 40 or 50 minutes I get up, even if it's just to go to the kitchen, open the window, or stretch my arms. That small movement every hour keeps the blood moving, prevents your legs from swelling, and wards off nighttime pains. Eat with inflammation in mind. Food speaks to our legs too. Many chronic pains come from constant internal inflammation, and there are foods that quiet it, and others that stoke it. I started adding more turmeric to my meals, a pinch in soups, stews, or even in warm milk at night, and I noticed the difference. I also eat more red fruits like blueberries, strawberries or blackberries, which are rich in antioxidants. And I added nuts, chia or fish as sources of omega-3, which helps deflate the joints. At the same time, I cut back on ultra-processed foods, fried foods, sodas, and excess sugar. I didn't eliminate everything, of course, but now I think twice before eating something I know will cost me later. Drink water, even if you're not thirsty. This may sound simple, but it's key. As we age, we lose the sensation of thirst, and that makes us dehydrate without realizing it. And a dehydrated body hurts more. Muscles contract, joints dry out, cramps show up. I set myself the goal of drinking at least 1.5 liters of water a day, and it helped to keep a bottle in sight. That way, every time I see it, I remind myself to drink a little. It seems small, but it makes a big difference. Sleep well, not just long. I used to think sleeping was just closing your eyes for many hours. Now I know what matters is how you sleep, not just how much. Deep sleep allows the body to repair, to rest, to regenerate. So I avoid screens before bed. I eat a light dinner. I apply my lavender oil to my legs. And I gift myself 20 minutes of calm before lying down. Because if the body rests well, pain loses strength. And most importantly, don't let pain define you. Sometimes when we've lived with discomfort for years, we start to think we are that pain, that there's nothing more to do. But let me tell you something. Pain is part of you, yes, but it isn't all you are. You are much more than a knee that hurts, a leg that swells, or a hip that bothers you. You are history, you are wisdom, you are perseverance. And sometimes, pain shows up not to punish us, but to push us to take better care of ourselves. So don't resign yourself. Don't give up. Because with every small gesture you make for your body, you'll be saying, I still have a lot of living left. And now, I invite you to do one last thing for today. Tell me in the comments what pains you've felt lately. In your legs, in your back, in your feet. In your heart too, if you like. Because maybe, among all of us here, we can help each other. Share what has worked for us. Support each other without judgment. Sometimes, health is also built in community. And if this video made you think, if it gave you the urge to try something new, or if you know someone who suffers in silence, share it. Send it to a friend, a sister, a neighbor. Maybe that person is also waiting for a sign, a story like this, a testimony that reminds them that the natural can also heal. Thank you for being here. And thank you for reminding me, with your presence, that there is still so much to live, even and especially after 80.